Hey you. This week, I'm talking about the road from inept to proficient, from incompetence to basic mastery, and how this affects our approach to doing the thing, to not being good, and to operating with persistence. Can you sense a recurrent theme here? Malcolm Gladwell wrote a book that I adore called Outliers. In it, he asserts a number of things. One of the ones which has become most famous is that it takes 10,000 hours of deliberate practice in order to achieve true mastery of a given skill. To be world-class at something. He also talks about things like luck and happenstance and the systemic advantages given to certain people according to where they live or when they're born or who they or their family know and other things over which they actually have no control. But he returns to the 10,000 hours as being the demarcation line between the merely good and the great, between the workmanlike and world-class. The book was a massive bestseller. The idea of 10,000 hours circulated widely, became accepted fact, and then, of course, it got debunked. A bit. Basically, he had approximated, and it's not a hard and fast 10,000 hours to mastery rule. He just put a nice round number on something that was in that ballpark to make it an acceptable soundbite, a memorable and workable heuristic. And why not? He's a journalist reporting real-life phenomena and his own observations, not a scientist reporting experimental data. Reality is more nuanced, but the underpinning idea is the same. Which got me thinking. As humans, we all start with pretty much the same ability to do anything, give or take a few genetic tweaks. And it is other things that build us towards the ability to be, quite possibly, the best in the world. These things are luck and privilege and access and timing, and yes, lots of dedicated, focused practice and persistence. But there's a continuum of that bit. You'll find other books that will tell you can go from not being able to do anything at all, being a zero, to being probably okay in less than 20 or 30 hours. Still elsewhere, you'll find the idea that 100 hours will make you functionally competent. Better than 95% of the people on the street. A casual practitioner, if you will. And if you put in 2,000 hours into a skill, you can probably get to the same level as someone who studied it at degree level or who makes their living at it. And then onwards and upwards, maybe to that mythical 10,000 hours that is estimated for people at the summit of their game. Of people like Bill Gates in computing, the Beatles in their music, and the brain surgeon who's going to operate, or at least you hope so. In fact, if you count it up, 10,000 hours is about what you put in to 10 years of doing something all day every day. 10 years of daily practice that consumes you. So if you've got a job and it requires you to do similar things every day, after 10 years you are probably going to be pretty damn good at it. I'm not here to argue that. I'm not even concerned about that. In this video, I'm talking about the beginning of the journey. From total zero to fundamentally competent. The steep part of the learning curve when rewards for effort put in can be quite astounding. So, where do the 100 pots of the film's title come in? I am glad you asked. There's a story or a meme or what have you, apparently to be found in the book Art and Feet, which may or may not be apocryphal, but which goes like this. A ceramics teacher announced on the first day of his course that he was dividing the class into 2 groups. All those on the left side of the studio, he said, would be graded solely on the quantity of work they produced. And all those on the right side of the studio would be graded solely on the quality. His procedure was simple. On the final day of the class, he would bring in his bathroom scales and weigh the work of the quantity group. 50 pounds of pots rated an A, 40 pounds a B, and so on. Those being graded on quality, however, needed to produce only 1 pot, albeit a perfect one, to get an A. Well, it came to grading time, and a curious fact emerged. The works of highest quality were all produced by the group being graded for quantity. It seemed that while the quantity group was busy churning out piles of work, they were learning from their mistakes. They were working in that first part of the learning curve. They were getting better. While the quality group had sat around theorising about perfection, and in the end had little more to show for their efforts than a whole load of grandiose theories and intentions, and a pile of unattractive clay. And of course, it's not just about pots. It's about all arts, all crafts, all skills, all everything. From learning to walk and talk to ballet and wall building. At the beginning, it's pretty much a load of rubbish. It's amateur hour. But if you do want to get better, and if the thing that you're doing at the beginning brings you down because it's not very good, don't worry. Good musicians will have played a tune every day. Yarn crafters will have crocheted hundreds of granny squares. Writers will tell you that the first 500,000 words are the hardest. There is alchemy in the process. The learning curve will give way, and step by step you will get there if you just keep practicing. If you just keep trying and learning, attempting and adjusting. But this step can't be skipped. Theory will not take you all the way to competence, and the only way out of incompetence is through practice. Quantity leads to quality. Practice leads to perfection, or a close approximation. Repetition leads to competence, and enough repetition, yes, leads to mastery. Whatever you attempt, you don't start out good. Good is where you end up if you do something enough, if you persist. So I guess my message is, if you're going to do something, then do it again and again and again. Learn something about the process every time. Improve something every time. Doesn't matter how small a thing, just a little bit. Don't be daunted by the scale of the task, because 99 times out of 100, quantity leads inexorably to quality. And it does not take 10,000 hours to achieve ordinary competence, which is brilliant news because most of us are not actually aiming for world-class elite. Competent, good enough, serviceable, of decent quality, workmanlike. These things are all within everybody's scope. These things will inevitably be yours if you show up, if you persist, if you give it a go and don't worry about perfection on the journey. So off you go now. Time to make 100 pots. Till next time.